Welcome to Backboard Banter on the board with your hosts, Matt Middleton and Kevin Rayner, where the banter's as ferocious as Luka Doncic, my friend. I know we talk about him every week. He's my as ferocious as, but this man had a 30-point triple double, a 43 11 and 7 game, and still only went 1-1. We need to get this man some help,
I mean,
okay?
who else are we supposed to talk about right now? Luca is the face of the league. Yes, Boston is out of their slump that they were on, so we can talk about Jason Tatum and MVP again. But Luka Doncic doing what he does every week is absolutely insane, Matt.
Bro, I don't want to hear any talk about anybody for MVP if your name is not Luka Doncic. Like, I'm sorry, Jason Tatum has a good team. He's got Jalen Brown. Jokic has a good team. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, they're playing well. I mean, besides Giannis, who's the only superstar in this league who has absolutely no help and has his team in a playoff position?
I
Luka
mean,
Doncic, my friend.
right? It's
Luka
why
Doncic.
it's why we have Giannis and Luca where we do. You can talk about LeBron doing what he's doing without AD right now, and we can. And he ended my dream a little bit. He put Sacramento in their place a little bit, unfortunately, but you can't stop the B man. Sacramento still in the fourth seed right now. I won't get too excited about the purple team. I'll keep it down a little bit today, Matt.
Hey, no, man, you predicted it. You were all about it this summer. You were trying to convince me that they were going to be, easily a playoff team, and I was thinking, Kevin, come on. There's so many other teams in this league, but hey, they're doing it. Unfortunately, our Raptors aren't, and it does sound like they're going to trade Gary Trent Jr. Unfortunately, but man, I still want them to dangle Freddie out there. I think you get a little bit more for Freddie. I think Gary fits our timeline. I think it's easier to find a passer than it is a scorer. But hey, what do I know?
I mean, it was a little positive week for the Raptors, but yeah, when we're thinking about that take of yours, it's been said, it's been put out there that Gary is absolutely available, and I was joking with Matt. I'm like, hopefully we'll get a nice trade for Gary, and then Masad's be like, so if we took Gary out, we put Fred in there, give us an extra pick, we still good? Can we still make this happen?
Absolutely, my friend. I would love to see that. And we did have some positive signs this week. Playing the Knicks pretty tough, and then getting two dubs over Portland and Charlotte. Which one do you want to start with, my friend? Because I know where I want to go.
I mean, I'm gonna start from the top. We can get out of the way really quickly because we were recording during that game last
Oh,
week, and we were kind of clowning on the boys. Last week was a tough Raptors chat. Really kind of bringing it together. But there's a little bit more positivity in the air this week, and even though we lost that Knicks game, it was one that they should have gotten at the end. And the most important thing about that game, Nurse let Gary cook at the end of it. Some big shots from Gary were allowed, which is what we were talking about through that whole episode.
yeah, absolutely, man. We were talking about how Nick needs to ride the players that are actually going. Again, Freddie started the game well. He ended up with like 28 points in that one. He's just not as efficient as we would love him to be. And as much as you can attribute that to his shot being maybe off or whatever, I think it's because his legs are really dying in fourth quarters. Honestly, this man does not look like the same player at the end of games as when he starts it, and it shows. He's been, one of the top league minutes guys the last two seasons. Nick is running him into the ground, and that goes back to our conversation last week of getting another guard, man, because we need somebody who can actually take some load off of him and help out. Like, could you imagine if we had Terry Rozier on this team as opposed to Malachi Flynn? Like, that even would be such an upgrade for our team. It's ridiculous.
And it's fun to have this conversation and know that there's little bits of improvements here and there because I look at that game against the Hornets. Flynn played 18 minutes. It's not a lot, but it kept the starters down. Fred only played 35. OG had, I think it was 32 minutes. Siakam played 35 as well. So it's like we're starting to get it. It helps when Christian Koloko is absolutely going off, going loco. He played 22 minutes against that Hornets team, but really it was his performance
Yeah.
against Portland that I want to highlight because that Portland game was pretty great because it was that first game after the conversation we were talking about we need ball movement. We're talking about how everybody's got to get involved. And I watched Siakam dish some early dimes. I watched Scotty really settle into a different role. And Koloko was just jamming the bucket down. It was really nice to see. That Portland game was fun to watch which we haven't really had a fun game to watch in a while.
Yeah, man. I mean, our team just hasn't been clicking, and you're right. I think over the last few games, the ball movement's been a little bit better. It still kind of feels like when the starters are out there, it's pretty sticky, and it's your turn, my turn. But I really have kind of liked what Nick's been doing. Pulling Gary and Scotty early in games, and then letting Gary run the second unit.
Yeah.
It's him and four bench guys, and everybody on that unit knows, okay, Gary's the primary option. Gary's the guy that we're looking for to get buckets. And it's really, I think, helping his confidence. He's creating a little bit more for himself in that secondary role. He's getting to the free throw line when it's just him and the bench guys out a little bit more. And really, that's kind of what has been the success of the last two games over Portland and Charlotte is running that unit has elevated our bench play. And we talked about it last week, man. We were getting 7 points a game from the entire bench unit. Those guys are playing what, like maybe 10 minutes a game between
Yeah.
all of them. I mean, it helps that we have Precious back, and now he's like what, 6-7 games back into his reinstallation stint, and he's playing better. Like the game against Portland and Charlotte, he actually had energy. He's playing well, and so there are some really good positive signs from this team. I just don't know where we stand, because at the end of the day, we could win a couple games this week and be in the play-in, or we could lose them and fall further out. So it's a tough one out here, man, in Toronto.
It's the scary point of when you're so close to being a 500, team, but also knowing that you're just as close to falling all the way out of the plane and not being relevant. That's the crazy part of the East. Before we get into any type of trade chatter with the Raptors, I do want to mention Scotty because we were talking about it beforehand. And, that interview after the Portland game really kind of pulled it all together for me. Him talking about how he wants to facilitate, he wants to have the ball moving where he likes it when things are going on. And, you mentioned him taking that, Dennis Rodman-like role, really starting to just do what the team needs, get those rebounds, get the ball moving. Like, it's really happy to watch Scotty find that moment because unfortunately for the kid, he's not going to have the opportunity to figure out his shot in game. We talk about how we want our rookies to get to play through their mistakes. Scotty is too important and is going to play so many important minutes that he can't figure out his shot in game, but he can do everything else he's super good at. And so shout out to him in these last two games for really settling in.
Well, I mean, like that was the thing about Scotty coming out of the draft, right? Like that's why he wasn't a consensus top 4 pick. That's why it was a shock when he was able to score at the rate that he was able to. Like in the second game of last year, when he dropped 28 against Boston, everyone in the stadium's going, "Wait, what? We got this at 4?" Like he was supposed to be, a great rebounder, a great defender, a great passer, but not a scorer. And I think last year there is no real expectations of him. He comes in and he does play that Dennis Rodman role for us. He did everything that we needed. He was the glue guy. He was the extra help defender. He was the rebounder. He was the no look throwing dimes,
Oof.
like running the floor. Like it was awesome to see him play that kind of style. And then this year we have so much expectation put on him. We want him to be that second year stud. We want a superstar level trajectory. And, sometimes development, isn't a straight line. There's ups and downs. And I think he's figured out he isn't there yet. Those dribble penetration moves that he's trying, he's doing a lot less of the last few games. He's not as aggressive as I'd like him to be hunting for a shot in the paint and trying to get down low, but he's accepted his role and he's really kind of fit in, like you said, and just kind of, he's been that glue guy for us, and that's where he thrives. And if he's thriving, the Raptors are definitely going to be thriving because we have too many good players, like we've talked about before, to be a bad NBA team, man. But parity, definitely clouds the picture for everybody. You're not as bad as you think you are, and you're not as good as you think you are. Because it just takes a few key players, even the bench guys, because there's so much talent in this league that it can really change everything. Like we talked about, Precious, man, he's really helped us out.
I mean, it's been a lot of positivity, right? And I mentioned it, I think, a few weeks ago about Scotty's vibe. Like, his vibe, I thought, just had been down recently. And we like it when that kid is amped up and bringing that spicy energy that, pulls everyone else around him. So we hope we can see a little bit more of that. But yeah, Precious Boucher, Koloko, Flynn. Everybody's getting some opportunity and they're taking advantage of it. And hopefully this means we can see more of it. I like to see Siakam at 35 minutes. I'd love to see him at 31 minutes a game if we could make that happen. So hopefully the positivity out of these couple of games has been really good for Nurse. And we can see that continue in the trend because we want that positivity. I'd like us to be above 500. I'd like us to be a playoff team. I'd love if we don't change anything and let the boys run because we can say it again and again. At the beginning of the season, we had faith in this team. That hasn't gone away. We've seen way too much bad basketball.
Way too much bad basketball. And I think, like you said, Nick is using 10 guys. He's running the bench a little bit deeper now, which is helping everybody. Everybody's a little bit fresher at the end of the game, so it lets us, dig in a little bit. It's only a small sample size, and that's the caveat here. And it's against, Portland and Charlotte. And even after tonight, we're playing Charlotte again. It's not going to be a telltale sign if we have improved fully. I'm looking at those back-to-back games in New York and Milwaukee this week as really kind of a barometer. I'm hoping we can beat Atlanta on Saturday because we're only a game back of them, so that would help flip the situation, at least to tie it, even if they win tomorrow night and we win tonight. So at the end of the day, there are some real good positive things about this team, and if we can get back to the way that we were playing at the beginning of the season, especially in those fourth quarters, man, like we were one of the best fourth quarter teams in the NBA to start the season 10 games in, and that just kind of disappeared when, the injuries happened, and no team likes to use that as an excuse. No coach likes to let the players off the hook with that, but it is a part of the game. And with the parity in the league, if the margin is so razor thin, that could be the major difference between going on a 5-game, 6-game win streak versus winning 2 out of 10, right?
And I think a lot of it does start at the top as well, right? Having Fred hit those massive back-to-back threes in that Portland game, the emotion that he showed is hopefully part of that confidence booster that we want to see, right? The fact that the boys on the broadcast are talking about they haven't seen Fred be emotional like that since, playing against Golden State, like, that's crazy to me to think about how big a deal that could be for a man that is getting beat around by the media, getting, thought of negatively by fan bases. Like, everyone is it's kind of bashing Fred right now, so hopefully that can be positive, and then we don't have to bash him.
Yeah, but I mean, it also speaks volumes that like he hit those 2 important threes against Charlotte in the fourth quarter, and still was only 3 of 10 from the field, man. Like that's not good shooting. But we care a little bit less when he hits the important shots because at the end of the day, when you think of Fred, I've never thought of him as anything but a kind of clutch player. When those shots are available, when he's open in the fourth quarter, like I want Fred to be shooting that 3. It's either him or OG for me in terms of those guys that I really want taking a catch and shoot shot. Obviously Siakam's going to be the one who creates it because like I don't know, man. I can't say enough about this guy being an all-star level, LNBA level player this year, and like he's got to create for everybody. But man, like give me OG or Fred hitting those shots, and even Gary now. I like what we have, right?
And shout out to OG as well, going 6 for 7 from 3 in that game against the Hornets. Again, it's the Hornets. He's gonna have those opportunities, but that's kind of what OG needs, right? Like everyone's talking about how OG's in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Cool, we know that about him. What actually matters is he's knocking down his shots when they're taken and when they're available for him. Because OG has the best line ever. I ain't shooting to miss. Like we love that about OG. So when that confidence is up, when he can have a game like that, the sky's the limit for a kid like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And hopefully this is just the start of an early turnaround that the Raptors really pick it up here for the rest of January. We were a second half team last year. I know we've mentioned that before, and so hopefully we can be a second half team again. Enter the playoffs with some good momentum and see if we can make some noise and win around. But again, at the end of the day, I think that with Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam as your 2 best players, our ceiling is the second round of the playoffs. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I love Freddie's leadership, but he isn't a top 15 guard in this league. He just isn't. And Pascal Siakam, he might be a top 15 NBA player, but his leadership is lacking. And I know everybody, looked at that, after practice play with him and Koloko, and, they're from the same town and, they're buddies and stuff. But I don't love that he kicked the rookie out of the scrum for himself. It shows and underscores who he kind of is. And what I've been saying over the 2 years that we've been doing this podcast, man, is that he is a me kind of player. And unless you are a top 3 guy in this NBA, undoubtedly, you can't be a me guy. And even if you look at the top 3 players in the NBA right now, like let's go with Luka, Giannis, and Jokic. Let's say those are the top 3 at the moment. None of them are particularly selfish. I mean, you could say Luka plays a very heliocentric style of basketball, but as we've noted,
He kind of has to.
who's he passing to? Christian Wood, Spencer Dinwiddie? Like, come on! Like, Jokic utilizes his teammates on a consistent basis. Giannis is actually kind of clowned in the media sometimes for being overly passive, right? And he himself says that his greatest skill is his passing, So you can't be a me guy. And I think that unfortunately at the head of our snake, we've got a me guy and just not strong enough of a guard to really rein him in when he needs to.
And I'm on the same board with Matt here. The moment with Koloko, initially I wasn't that worried about because I was like, they're two buddies from Cameroon making that joke together is fine. And then I saw the zoom in camera angle of Koloko just sitting against the wall, just kind of having that like, man, this sucks look on his face, and then it kind of brought it full circle to me, and I was like, okay, maybe not the jokier situation that I thought it is, and the Raptors have been in this situation, right? We've been in a situation where we have at least one All-Star, where we have 2 guys that are, when playing at their peak, All-Star capable. And if I have to say it again, like, it looks like we're in that trade for the potential future. And Siakam's proved that he could be a number 2. We've seen that 2 very successful championship. Now, obviously, there was some dagger shots from Fred VanVleet that happened there, but we know Gary can do that. OG didn't get to play at all in any of those games. So, like, you look at the building blocks that you need to truly win a championship, to create a championship contending team. And, we're close. We're really close. But if Siakam and Fred can't be the true number 1s, the true leader that you need, like, maybe we need to trade for that true superstar. And then, Kyle comes back on a $1 million deal just to be the quote unquote voice in the locker room for us. Like, the options are
and
there.
Just make him a player coach.
I mean, that's the other thing. Fred player coach, Kyle player coach. We kind of want them in a couple years, right?
Well, man, I keep Freddie on the court if Kyle's in the locker room, kind of teaching everybody what to do. I think Fred VanVleet played his best basketball when Kyle Lowry was on the bench.
Yeah.
Kind of in his ear, telling him what to do, when to do it, how to play. And I think Freddie kind of misses that veteran presence a little bit. He is the vet now, and I understand that he's been in the NBA for, 6 years? But there's a big difference between an undrafted player who made it this far and Kyle Lowry, who, when he was at his peak, I think it was hard to argue against him being a top 10 guard in the NBA.
Oh, very hard. Very hard. And the fact
Right?
that he had to revitalize his career the way that he did, the fact that you go from being almost traded away to becoming a franchise GOAT, basically, like, that is such an interesting storyline. And yeah, Fred has his crazy story as well, but there's so much that you have to overcome in this NBA. And when you think about this front office, their job is to build a championship. Their job is to get wins for their fan base, for their coaching staff, for everything that they have to deal with, for the owners as well, right? Like, so the job is look at the pieces you have, move them around the board until you find your way to a championship. And we know that that's the Raptors' focus. Whether they get there or not, that doesn't matter. The focus is still the same.
Yeah, and that's what you hope from a franchise, right? Like, it's championship or we didn't have a good season, and that's the mentality that we like to keep, even in a rebuilding phase, right? Because that's really where we are. Last year we overachieved. 36 wins was our projected win total. So the fact that we got 48, I think, raised expectations really quickly. And again, if we make the playoffs, if we win 45 games this year, which is still very plausible, like that's a good season for the Raptors. And if they can win a round, great. If not, man, and this is kind of where I'm at with the team, we don't need to make trades, but making a drastic trade to kind of change the trajectory of our franchise where maybe we do take a step back this year, maybe we go get a top 4 pick, a top 2 pick, hopefully, if we could. Because, man, I think Scoot Henderson is the answer for us. And you just don't come across those players on the open market. You can't trade for them. It's going to be impossible to pry Shea out of OKC with what he's doing right now this year. So
Yeah.
we've got to find a way to get an elite guard, or else having an elite wing player, as good as Siakam is, only takes you so far.
And the other part to add to that is, right, like, we look what Scotty has done. Even if, which we know this won't happen, and please don't happen, even if Scotty stays the exact player he is for the rest of his career, it was still worth it for where we took him there. It's a hard thing to say because we know he's going to become better, and if the opportunity is there for him to be better. But even if he just is like a Draymond Green-esque player, a Dennis Rodman-esque player for us, and that allows us to build what we do, it's still a successful moment. But a player like Scoot, if we can get as far down as we can, right, the potential is just limitless there, and it opens up the future. And you're right. We are in a retool. We are in a rebuild. We are looking for the future. We're not trying to win right now. Last season, overachieving made us kind of think that maybe we could win right now. But, the realist inside me looks at the rest of the East and knows where we stand.
Absolutely, my friend. And unfortunately, that's just the case of where we are. So hopefully, we have a good week this week. Even a 2-2 week would be good for us at this point. But we do need to make up ground because the trade deadline is coming and we need to make some decisions on some key players. Again, though, I don't think we're giving away Gary Trent Jr. for nothing, right? Like, you look at Anthony Simons, and yes, Anthony's having a better season than him, but Gary's had better seasons than him in the past. What is Anthony Simons worth on the open market? Probably 2 first-round picks?
Right?
At least?
Most.
At least, I think. I think he's probably worth 2 first-round picks and, like a bench player.
And this is the chaos of the current trade market, right? Of where everything stands because of the Rudy Gobert situation, because of so many other things. But no, I think you got a valid point there, and I hope we don't trade away Gary for scraps for sure.
Yeah, like I don't even want a first-round pick for Gary because at the end of the day, if that first-round pick is in the 15 to 30 range, like Gary's the kind of player that you hope to get in that range. A microwave scorer off the bench who could be a 6th man of the year. Like, I know we're starting him, but that's kind of the role that he's playing with that bench unit right now, and I think that's the correct unit. And if we have to start him just so that he has, at the beginning of the game, he gets to have his name out there and whatever, pull him 2 minutes in, pull him 3 minutes in. I like that strategy and have him run the second unit because I think that between him and Siakam, both are a little bit too ball dominant, and when they're on the court together, they don't necessarily work all that well. With Gary out there with the bench, man, it's been working, and let's ride this out. Let's get some better play. Like you said, Koloko's playing a lot better. He's not fouling. He's being utilized better. So hey, man, I'm all for it.
The little experiments are working out, and I don't want us to just be in the same boat as we were in the offseason. Like, oh, we could trade OG Anunoby for the 7th pick. The player could be as good. They could even be as good as OG Anunoby. Like that. Are we gonna do this with Gary? Like, are we just gonna do this again? But that's pretty much all I got for Raptors chat. There's nothing else that I really need to do, my friend. If you're ready to move on to the rest of the NBA.
I'm ready to move on. I just want to say, like Shaedon Sharpe is looking like a great rookie, but like again, probably his ceiling is OG Anunoby. Like how we have him.
Too funny. All right, so switching into the NBA now, I think we have to start with Kevin Durant. I think we have to start with the Brooklyn Nets because MCL injury Sunday versus Miami. They're going to reevaluate in 2 weeks. We'll see what it does for him. It's his other leg, not the one that had the previous injury. So that's the good news. But I can't believe the Nets were 18 of 20 wins going before this injury. Like, I knew they were on a roll, but man, They are really
14
on a
and
roll.
1, 14 and 1 in their last 15, man. Like that is it is hype, and that's the good thing for them, right? Like, yes, this Kevin Durant injury is brutal and it sucks. But hey, they've got some leeway. They've got a bigger cushion, and they've got a little bit of continuity now. At least they know what they should look like when they are playing really good basketball. So even if he misses, like 20, 30 games here, when he comes back, they'll still have about, a 10, 15 game runway to the playoffs. And hopefully they just kind of get back into that groove and Kevin Durant fits right back in. I mean, the man had an Achilles injury like that normally ends people's career, and he came back looking just as good as Kevin Durant ever did. Just one quick thing about that though, because LeBron's kind of hurt now. He's taking some games for some rest. Some people are calling it injury. People clown him and say, Father Time's coming for him. Like, this man is hurt. This man is 4 years older than Kevin Durant and is way more durable, bro. Like, Kevin Durant gets hurt way more often. Nobody talks about Kevin Durant. Steph Curry, I know he came back from injury and had 24 points against Phoenix, but man, like, he's more injured than LeBron. Like, why do we all hate LeBron so much, media? Like, I get it. He's taking away from Michael Jordan's legacy. He is the new GOAT, and y'all are too upset about it. But at the end of the day, credit where credit is due. This man is sweet, okay?
Absolutely.
Nice with it.
We'll get to the Lakers, so the Lakers have been doing well, but man, it's the truth of the NBA right now. There's injuries that are really causing issues, and the good news for Brooklyn is they have a full-time Kyrie Irving right now who can go off and be the lead for this team.
I
Ben
like how he's
Simmons,
full-time.
he's a full-time player right now. That's the truth of it. That's where we are now. So
First
yeah.
time in 4 or 5 years.
Oh my God, exactly. But also, like, is this just another year where Kevin Durant doesn't get to play in the All-Star game? Like, how does this keep happening over and over and over again? Seriously.
Hey man, we talked about, like Giannis, Embiid, Tatum, KD. One of them couldn't start, so I guess we know
The basketball gods made the decision for us.
for us.
Oh my God. Yeah, but so yeah, Brooklyn's gonna be fine. The fact that they have a 14 game cushion basically above 500, like, they're gonna be fine. And hopefully it's only 15 games. Hopefully it's not that 20, 30 game mark that we're looking at. But you don't have to worry about Brooklyn right now. They've settled in. They're looking pretty good after the Steve Nash firing. Brooklyn is on pace to probably be a top 4 seed, regardless of how this injury affects them.
Hey man, leadership is a major part in this NBA world, right? Like, not having the right leader for the players or having the players tune out the leader is what we're talking about with Nick Nurse, right? Like, that's what we're thinking, would spark our team, because just like Brooklyn had too much talent to be that bad, we have too much talent to be that bad. And no, we don't have the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons quote unquote star power. But I think if you did a redraft of that Ben Simmons draft, Siakam would probably go ahead of him. I think you got probably Jaylen Brown at 1 because you got more of a runway than Siakam.
Yeah.
Then you probably taken Siakam or Brandon Ingram, depending on who you favor. If you want to go younger, a little, not as good yet, but could potentially be there, or Siakam, who's the established superstar.
True.
And then you're going Ben Simmons, man. Like, Ben Simmons is the 4th pick in that draft, and it's not really close. So.
And the fact that we can at least say that, because Ben Simmons could have been gone. He could have been retired from the NBA. He could have been out of the spotlight. But he's come back and he's settled into a pretty consistent, solid role for Brooklyn. And, I'll do a quick reminder to get a good chuckle out of Matt. He was my Defensive Player of the Year pick, at the beginning of the season. And that was specifically because I expected him to settle in and learn to play the way that he has. Now, I forget that the awards are for an entire year's worth of basketball, not just the half a season of defensive, skills that he's going to put in for this squad. But yeah.
60 games. He'll probably put in 60, 55 games of, Defensive Player of the Year level play. Like, he just, the first 25, he was out here trying to figure out his mentals. And you know what? Everybody has mental, struggles, and everybody deals with that. So I'm really happy that he's really figured it out and he's back. Because, man, basketball is better when we have better players. Like, that is why our NBA is so great right now, is because of the amount of talent that there is, right? We're talking about some of the greatest players to end up. I mean, we were talking about it because we both love Kobe, but there's at least four guys in the NBA right now besides LeBron who could end up higher than Kobe on the all-time list. And like, I mean, look, Kobe fans, I love Kobe too, but like, he was a less efficient Michael Jordan. You can only get so high in the rankings when you're a less efficient than not even the GOAT.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to my buddy Cole for sparking this debate by asking me, I made a comment about LeBron being the GOAT, and he was like, oh, well, what about Kobe? And I was like, Kobe's not on my top. Well, he was like, what? Kobe's my GOAT. And I was like, okay, hold up, hold up, hold up. But that's a conversation for another day. But let's talk about LeBron a little bit. Let's talk about this Lakers squad that seemingly is coming back to relevance now. The important thing that you have to remember about this Lakers team is that they have a one Russell Westbrook on this squad. And if you have not been paying attention to the NBA in the past few years, you have not been seeing Russell go from being clowned the first day of the season to finding his way to being a successful and dominant player on his team come the end of it. And I'm sorry, Russell is one of the most important pieces of this Lakers squad right now. It looks like they're not just going to be trading him and picks away.
Man, as a huge Russell Westbrook fan, as a guy who like literally would only pick the Oklahoma City Thunder so I could play with Russell Westbrook, like I am so happy because you think back to the 2016 season. I think it was 2016 when he averaged like that triple double and won the MVP, the first one. A 30-10-10 game was like almost like nonchalant,
Wild.
like oh hum Russell Westbrook. Like this man was doing so much and was so good and dragging this team, and then goes to the Houston Rockets and James Harden situation, and then he gets traded to the Washington Wizards, and then he's going to the LA, and his name is just getting dragged through the mud. Like, you guys know that this man is one of, for me, at least one of the top 75 players of all time. This man, I don't know if he was on the list. I don't remember the entire list at the moment, but he should have been on it. How many guys besides him average a triple double for a season? And this man did it 3 straight years. Like, how many guys can drag an inept team into the playoffs as a guard, right? Like, we've seen centers do it, we've seen forwards do it, but as a guard, like where you carry the entire load of the offense and you're rebounding, like this man was so special. So shout out to Russ, man. He's been playing some great basketball. He's really, like you said, he's embraced his role. He's hitting his shots. He's back to being confident. Like, I knew he was never that bad of a shooter. Like everyone clowns him, yes, for his career. He's not
Right?
an amazing shooter, but he was never garbage. He could hit threes. He could shoot well. He was good. Like, come on, you don't go from being an MVP superstar to being the worst player in the league. And that's kind of what happened to him. So, shout out to Russ, man. Gotta love that man.
It's a great feeling. And when you think about players in this league, like historically, people are remembered for winning championships, for having greatness. There are very few people who are put on like the true pantheon of greatness without having won a championship and are remembered years and years and years after they stop playing. Nobody's going to forget Russell Westbrook. He is absolutely a massive part of NBA history. What he did in those years is incomparable. It's untouchable. It's unthinkable. And yes, we have the NBA right now where Luka's doing that every night if he wants to, where we're seeing these constant 50
Jokic.
plus games here. We're seeing Jokic do all these triple doubles. Like, it's it's all inspired by Russ. Like, even if it isn't inspired by Russ, how many
It
of these players, how many kids right now look at not Steph Curry for his shooting, but Russ because of his all around game? So yeah, you got to give the man his credit. And this is what we want. This is what we wanted for Russ. Getting to join LeBron, getting to join this Lakers squad. We wanted him to have a chance at a championship so he can have a greater legacy. And well, we don't expect this Lakers team to be getting a championship anytime soon, especially with the Anthony Davis injuries. At least there's good basketball, and they're not just getting clowned in the media. That's what we're happy about.
Hey man, they went on a 5-game win streak. The fact that they're still like
Crazy.
3-4 games below 500 though is kind of bad. It really goes to show you that like that start to their season really sunk their ship. And I think the whole kind of talk over the off season was you need to make the trade just so that you don't have that kind of start. And while Rob Pelinka might be validated by the fact that Russell Westbrook is playing so well now and that it was a good idea to keep him, I think that start and trying to figure it out on the fly really sunk their ship.
Yeah.
We'll see if AD can get healthy and back. If LeBron can continue to play at this unprecedented level for a 38-year-old. I mean, like, you look at year 20 points per game, and it's like Karl Malone, like 3.7, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like 6. Kobe Bryant, I think, was at like 15. And then you got LeBron averaging almost 38 and 7. Like, what is going on? This man is still in his prime, okay? Like, so they definitely have a good enough, 3 with Russell Westbrook playing this way. I like Lonnie Walker. Austin Reeves isn't great, but at least he can hit shots. Like, if they could take Kendrick Nunn and Patrick Beverly and those 2 first-round picks, like, not that you can scout for them because they're, like, in grade 6 at the moment. Like, if you could take that and get anything, like Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, like, even just one of them, bro, would help this team out. To shout out to my boy Thomas Bryant, too. That man, he's earned himself a big pay raise next year. This man's gonna go from league minimum to at least 15 mil a year. I'm serious, bro.
Absolutely.
Walking double doubles get paid, bro.
Board bands get paid, absolutely, and you kind of want it for LeBron. Like, you're sitting here and you're kind of, I was talking with the reason why Cole was talking about the GOAT debate was we were talking about this idea of how, like, in the NBA, when was the last time a 7th seed or an 8th seed actually went anywhere? The We Believe Warriors? Like, when did we not have the Final Four be a top 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed, right? Like, it's almost getting predictable. And if anyone is going to change that up, if anyone is going to, flip the narrative on his head, it's LeBron James coming in as, the 7th seed Lakers somehow pulling out miracles. And it would be beautiful. But, man, we are talking pure fantasy right now. Like, I got to sell 1,000 copies of this book to even break even. Like, I just don't. It just can't happen. It would be unreal if it did.
And like you said, if anybody could do it, it would be our boy LeBron James. Because 3-1 had never happened before either until that man in an NBA Finals. So, hey, anything's possible when you believe in LeBron.
Absolutely. And, looking at the rest of the West, not much has really changed since our conversation last week. The Kings bumped up a little bit. The
the
Mavs
flip
just
there.
kind of existed. That's what it is. But everything else is pretty much static. There's nothing in the West that, really piques my interest to talk about.
Hey, man, I mean, Golden State's kind of getting there. Phoenix and Golden State, I mean, how the mighty from last year have kind of fallen into those play-ins. It's unfortunate for those guys. Man, your Grizzlies on an 8-game win streak. Stephen A out here calling them in the NBA Finals probably cursed their chances at making it there.
Ugh.
That man can't get a call right to save his life. But hey, Rockets going for Victor Wembanyama, maybe Portland going down the hill. I expected them to be bad. They started off so strong, and it's really kind of falling apart. And they're pretty healthy at the moment, if you think about it. Like, they've got all their guys. They're just not there.
It's hard, right? We talked about how, Dame could keep them afloat, but they just don't have enough depth, enough talent. And I think a team like that, even like the boys on the roster almost know that. They're almost hanging out, just like riding the coattails of Dame, just kind of getting those W's. But I think the conversation, Matt, has to turn to the game of the week. The wildest experience that I've ever read on paper, because I didn't watch it.
The game of the week.
Thankfully, I didn't have to watch this game. Okay. For anyone who isn't aware, OKC and Miami played a game yesterday. And you'd think James Harden was on the roster because, man, the amount of free throws that were shot in this game sets an NBA record. So just on the one side, Miami shot 40 free throws. And the craziest part, they made all 40 of them. Okay? In a game that ends 112-111, Jimmy Butler sinks a free throw to win the game. Oh yeah, he was 23 for 23. And if it's not ironic enough, Oklahoma, they brick 2 free throws to ice the game right before that. Like, man, somebody decided that all of the refs in the world were going to tune in to watch this game because it was a masterclass in sending people to the line.
Oh, bro, don't even get me started. We talk about it almost every week at this point. I can't talk about the refs, man. I can't. I'm done with it. The NBA needs to fix this problem because, bro, it's like I guess they could do it in the middle of the season now because not a lot of people are that interested, especially like an Oklahoma City Miami Heat game. Like, who's really tuning in besides those fans to watch it? But man, it is just ugh. I don't, next.
Okay, so let's to close out our conversation of the week. You know, we can't go through without discussing this because it seems like it's the topic across the NBA right now. Where's the defense? Like, we as Raptors fans, we get to watch defense in the NBA, but it seemingly still isn't enough. But for every 50 piece that we see, there's a 60 piece coming around the corner. Where's the defense in the NBA, man?
Bro, it's still there. The NBA just needs to expand a little bit because I think there's just too much talent on rosters. Like Donovan Mitchell is having a better season than Kobe Bryant's MVP season. Like,
Yikes.
and he's not even in the top 10 for MVP category, right? Like, I could name probably 10 guys that are ahead of him, arguably. It's wild. There are so many good players, and there are so many shooters that you have to account for. All the old heads are saying, "Oh, they don't play defense like they did in the '80s and the '90s." They don't. It's not as physical. It's not as tough. It's like the guys in the '80s and the '90s couldn't pull up from 30 feet and nail a shot. And it seems like there's at least one guy on every NBA team that can pull up and hit a 30-footer. Fred or Gary being one of our guys, we're middling at best, and we've got two of them. Like Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Ja Morant could do it, Desmond Bain could do it. Like the list goes on and on and on of guys who could just, spot up. So you have to stretch your NBA defense, and you can't clog the paint. Like they're like, it's too easy to get to the rim like it was in the 90s and the 80s. Well, because you can't just camp. Like you have to play, you have to rotate, you have to move. It's a physical fit game now, as opposed to the big bruisers who used to just sit back there, step out of the paint every once in a while and knock people down. Like I think the NBA is better off for it, to be honest, because the games are more exciting, the players are more exciting.
It's kind of a poison pill situation, right? The beautiful part of the NBA game that we're getting to see, the generational change that Steph Curry has put in place, right? Like, on one hand, man, is it beautiful to watch shots go down, but yeah, you have to watch and adapt. You have to learn, and defenses are doing a good job. Like, we see these great stretches, right? Like, on the one hand, you have that, but then the other hand, you have that great stretch where the Rockets couldn't knock down a shot and went like what 0-28 from three. Like, this is the chaos of the beauty of the game. Yes, everything is opened up. Yes, there's more 3-point shots, but there's always an answer. There's always an answer. The cornet contest has become a thing in the NBA. If you haven't seen the cornet contest, people, please go look it up. It is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and apparently it works. Apparently, if they can't see the rim, they can't shoot a shot. Like that's the beauty of it, right? Like we have to see this wonderful evolution, and I don't like the conversation of creating a 4-point line. I don't like the conversation of moving the thing back because I don't think that is concrete. I don't think that is a proper solution, right? Like you talk about expansion, like yeah, you create more teams, there's less talent, which means that there's more defense that can be played because you don't have to worry about the fifth and sixth guy because they're on, Seattle nowadays instead of being on this team. So we'll see.
Man, I think it just helps out with the game, and it spreads around the talent a little bit more, and it makes it more exciting. And at the end of the day, like it's a great game to watch. And like you said, the 3-point line and the Steph Curry revolution has kind of really affected the way people play because nobody's trying to take a mid-range shot anymore. Nobody is looking at a mid-range shot and thinking that is a good thing to take, even though I'm sorry, like if you're 15 feet away from the basket and nobody's really guarding you, take that shot. Take it, bro. Like it's a good shot. Like it's better than a contested three, but you see so many times that guys are open for those, hesitate and kick to three, and then they end up taking a contested three. Like I think the NBA needs to find a better balance, but hey, man, it's moving in pendulums, and it'll swing back to a little bit of the 2-point game once they start running people completely off the line and they really figure out that 3-point perimeter defense. So we'll see how it goes.
And I think it's the versatility, that will shine through, right? It's having options that shine through. I think about how important the pick and pop was with Kyle and Serge, where they'd set a pick and roll not above the 3-point line, but just below it. That would then get Serge in a position where he's just right of the free throw line in that spot that he loved to go up for, right? Like it's understanding your team and creating that chemistry, and it's why we talk about wanting every player of our roster to get the opportunity to have those minutes, because when it comes down to it, playoff basketball, it slows down. It gets grindy, and if you don't have options to go to, if you're just doing the same play over and over and over again, a good team's going to figure out. Good players are going to figure it out. The fact that LeBron James can know like half of what the other team's playbook is going to be, and there's been clips in the past where he's literally telling a defender, hey man, you don't have the right coverage right now. Like, that is how intelligent players are in the NBA right now. So you have to be ready, and the shots are going to be there for people to take. So it's just a fun time, right? Like, you can't be mad that shooting is where it is in the NBA. You just have to enjoy it and love the beautiful game that we're getting to watch.
Yeah, and defense is just harder to play when you have to start guarding from 30 feet out. It's just a natural fact. And so
let's also not forget that there was a time in the NBA when you weren't allowed to leave your defender, where you couldn't double team. Like, let's just not look back at what the archaic rules used to be in this sport. So let's just be thankful for what we got.
And like you think about like when the true explosion of the NBA, like the last time we've seen this kind of scoring, like was the 80s, and what happened in the end of the 70s? The ABA folded and there was a huge influx of talent into the NBA.
Interesting. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a good couple of weeks. We're really just we're waiting for the trade deadline. We're waiting for some things to happen, for some spicy change ups, but that's pretty much it this week for me, my friend.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's go into some takes, I think. It's football season for you, so I'll do the basketball take this week. Because I'm not trying to give bettors the absolute guide on how to win the NFL playoffs. But Milwaukee going 4-0 this week, man. I can see it. Unfortunately, we play them. They're probably gonna beat us on Tuesday. Milwaukee, man, picking up from where they left off. They had a little bit of a losing streak. They're gonna be back on top. Yeah, it's just too good. Like I'm too much of a fan.
Man, and the rumors that they're looking to make a trade, like you get a Fred VanVleet shooter with, Giannis, like that's a scary situation. But yes, Matt, he brought it up. It is football season. Now, it's not really football season for me because I'm just like a closeted fake, hilarious football fan. Like maybe one day I'll get to jump through a table with Austin as a Bills fan over here. But I
Maybe
can't.
this year.
Maybe this year. We'll see in the future. But I can't not pull my predictions at. Matt started this 2 years ago when somehow I pulled my way into a perfect run and got Tom Brady another championship. I can't not do predictions in football. So we're starting easy this week. Last year I believed in the Bengals. I got them a good victory. So we're gonna rinse and repeat that. This might be the easiest take I'm going for, but Bengals over Ravens. It's football season. It's playoff season. I'm excited, my friend.
Here, bro. I'll give you the other ones. Jacksonville Jaguars over the Chargers. Buffalo Bills over the Miami Dolphins. I'm taking the Vikings over the Giants. And I will take Cowboys over Tom Brady and the Bucks.
Spicy.
It's going to be a good weekend, man. It's going to be a really good weekend. I think there's another game in the NFC that I'm forgetting about, but I think it's, that kind of game where you don't really care.
Seahawks 49ers?
49ers, man. I don't even need to predict that one. That's why I forgot about it. I already have the 49ers in the next round, bro. Pete Carroll coming out here already calling them a juggernaut, bro.
I think
he's already cushioning the blow.
World. Exactly. Everyone knows what's happening there, but I think that's it. So thanks everybody for being here. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Board Sports. Like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up, and check out theboardsports.net for new episodes and blog posts.
And we'll talk to you next time.